We have 2 seasons here, rain and snow, right? Those are our choices. I actually have 3 different lessons I put together. I told Debbie at like 4:30, I said, I'm not even sure that I'm even done with the 3 that I have. So we're going to go on a little journey here together. First, I kind of want to go over what we talked about Sunday. Somebody give me a definition, and not the Hebrew Greek, because we'll go over that in a second. When I say glory, what is glory? See, one of the funny things is, you know the word Shekinah is not in the Bible. Shekinah comes from the Hebrew, but it comes from the Talmud, the books written about the Bible by the Jews in the synagogues. Which is interesting for a couple of different reasons, but I like that you said that. When we say Shekinah glory, though, what do we mean? Spirit. But the physical manifestation, usually in the form of smoke, of the glory of God, right? Somebody tell me, like in the Old Testament, where's the glory of God show up? We talk about Shekinah glory. We talk about the smoke. We talk about, where does that show up in the Old Testament? In the cloud, in the burning bush. Right. The cloud by day, the fire by night, the bush that is on fire but is not consumed, which I like because later on, Hebrews says our God is a consuming fire, and yet even while the bush is on fire, it's specifically not consumed. And I've always tried to figure those 2 verses out and how they kind of bounce off of each other. I don't think they're meant to. I think they're just meant to be taken in context, and they are what they say they are. Where else does the glory show up? Another big occasion the glory shows up in the Old Testament. Moses, on the mountain, goes up, right? Glory of God covers the mountain. There's rumblings and lightnings and, big, ostentatious, my big word for tonight, ostentatious displays, right?
What about Elijah when he left in the chariot?
In the chariot of fire, right? I'm still thinking of one, and I know you guys know this one. When the glory comes down, well, also in the tabernacle, when they choose Aaron as the leader of the Levites, right? They put everyone's staff in the tabernacle, and the glory comes, and all the staffs are the same except for Aaron's, whose staff buds, right? All of a sudden, life. I love that. Glory is bringing life. Like I told Jake and Taylor, I said, if you come here to this church got a ministry of life, you're going to get pregnant. What happens?
Right.
I know.
What about lighting up the fire?
You're okay. Don't worry.
What was that?
I told her not to worry.
I don't know. I'd have to look up the reference to see what the words are used there. There is the pillar of fire that descends. They have a lot of theological terms for things like that, like whether it's this or whether it's that. Like when someone appears in an Old Testament, they call him like the Son of Man, or they call him in the form of a man. Was it a theophany? Was it Christ? Right? Was it whatever the word is for that? They have different words for whether it's an angel or whether it's actually Christ in the Old Testament walking, things like that. The big one though is the temple. When they dedicate the temple, the first temple of Solomon, the glory comes and fills the temple. And another big one too, of course, is Ezekiel, because Ezekiel not only sees the glory enter the temple, but Ezekiel sees the glory depart. Right. And just like when, and this is why Sunday I tried to go shorter and just couldn't. Because there's just, I literally had a whole page of scriptures that I could not get into Sunday that all had to do with the subject of glory being the manifestation of the acceptance of God. That glory is the manifestation of the acceptance of God. Because every time the glory comes to the children of Israel, to the tabernacle, to the temple, right? It's always God saying, I am pleased with this. That it's a stamp of approval. That glory indicates an approval of what is going on. Right? That's why when you see the second temple, and the glory doesn't fall on the second temple, does it? And it says that the young ones were cheering and the old ones were wailing, and you couldn't tell the difference between the wails and the cheers of the people outside the temple. But you know why the glory doesn't come to the second temple, right? Because the glory is going to walk in there in the person of Jesus Christ eventually.
So can we say kind of that it's the approval presence of God?
It is. It's an acceptance. And then when you get into, okay, so now we get back to Elijah. What was different between Elijah's sacrifice and the prophets of Baal? That God accepted his, right? Like with Canaan, I haven't studied that one enough. I don't want to go down that road, but that's good. Because every time you see the glory, it's God saying, this is, in fact, when Jesus is baptized, what does he say? Right? This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased, and the dove comes and rests on him, right? There's a voice from heaven, there's a type of glory that because the ultimate goal for every child of God is the moment in which we stand before him and hear, well done, thou good and faithful servant. There is an approval there. Now, we've stood before earthly fathers and mothers who we think we did everything in the world right for them. Did you ever do something for your parents and you went to say, hey, I did this thing for you, and they were mad at you for doing it? Anybody? Or you do something for them and they criticize it, right? And you're going to them looking for that approval, look at what I've done, and the earthly parent looks at you and just, right? Just breaks your heart, doesn't it? And that's why we strive, right? That's what the Bible says, we beat our bodies like as one running a race, that we deny ourselves, that we put ourselves through all these crazy things, that we don't do all the stuff that the world does, because we're trying to bring something to him that he can look at in our life and say, well done, thou good and faithful servant, enter in. Right? So, I don't know, I can't get into all of it, can I? The thing about glory, and the way this is going to tie into this, is that in seeking glory from God, we're seeking the acceptance of God. We're seeking his stamp of approval. Preachers, sometimes pastors, get caught up in all the business of the church, right? Like today, trying to get my lesson done, because I had to meet with 2 insect guys and a basement guy, because we get water down there sometimes. We're trying to figure out, where water's coming from, and apparently it falls out of the sky here. It's just all around us, right? But because every building in the 5-mile radius has to have a basement, we get water in there. And I know it's because 50 years ago a tornado wiped out a whole lot of people, and we're, and I understand why that sticks in our head, because that was, the last thing you want is no place to go, because there's no terrain to hide in around here, right? There's no...
They have a sump pump down there though?
2 sump pumps, and now 2 dehumidifiers, and we run fans too, but because of landscaping and all sorts of things. Anyway, you get wrapped up sometimes as a preacher, as a pastor, especially a full-time one, in the business of the church, right? I gotta see.
God slide.
Right, and I should be doing my lesson today, and I'm sitting down, and I tell you what, I'm having some great conversations with these guys about what church they go to, because if you're going to sell something to me, I'm going to witness to you. That's the price of coming in here and getting to do your sales pitch, is that I get to talk to you about the Lord and see where your life is at. That's the currency of it.
So are they coming Sunday?
We'll see. We'll see. It turns out one guy he's an insect guy who also tours the world. Literally, he's going to both Koreas and China to play drums. He was in what was it, the Mac show?
Play drums?
Ted Mack.
Ted Mac show. Anybody remember the Ted Mac show?
When he was 12.
This guy was on the Ted Mac show when he was 12, and now he owns a pest control business in the area. And I'm like, what an interesting story. Anywho. We spend a lot of our lives trying to get the approval of people that don't deserve us trying to get their approval. Did you know that? We spend a whole lot of time trying to impress people that aren't worth us impressing. I find too, just as a social thing, and I think I tend to find this more among women than men, but I find it a lot where if somebody is super critical of other people, right? Like if I'm like, did you see what Tina's wearing tonight? that color's no good for her, right? You see the way Laverne fixed her hair, right? Here's what I'm doing. I'm showing you that I can find things wrong with people, right? And what happens then is the person kind of responds to that. They either go along with it, they go along because all of a sudden you want my approval. Well, hey, this person's got high standards and he's showing me where these things are. And all of a sudden we're looking for the approval of that person because that person knows how to cut other people down. right? It's funny, we do that, and I think sometimes it goes back to that little kid that's still trying to get a parent to love them, right? To say, hey, accept what I've done, see what I've done, won't you accept this, right? And so if they find somebody who exhibits sort of those critical qualities, we automatically assume if they're critical of people, then they must be really smart, to find. I don't know what it is, but we do gravitate towards those people, and then sometimes we find ourselves becoming that way in order to gain their acceptance or their approval. Now, if I know that you like to make fun of people, and so you come back to me and you're like, yeah, did you see Gareth? What's up with that? What's up with that shirt he's wearing tonight, right? And then I agree with you now all of a sudden, right? And you've got my approval and that's a bad thing, right? But sometimes we learn these bad habits from family, right? If in your family you got approval by acting badly, then when you grow up, you look for approval in society by acting badly, right? We all get trapped in that. And here's where we get messed up is sometimes we're doing the Cain and Abel thing where we know what God desires, but what we're bringing him is not that, right? I don't know if we'll get to it. If we get to it, there's a thing called the wall. We're going to get to the wall. I like it that the book called that. I'm half going off my sermon, half going off one chapter of this book, and half going off a different chapter in this book, and half of it the Lord's just talking to me as I'm looking at it today. So we'll get there. So I want to focus more on today about the healing aspects of when we come to things that are in our past, how do we get over it? Right? Because apparently just telling someone to get over it doesn't work, right? That really hurts. Get over it, right? I think that's a dad thing, right? The kid scrapes his knee, walk it off, Mom's all like, come here and let me kiss that boo-boo, right? I learned as our kids were young that if I scraped myself, do not let Kristen know. I would hide wounds from her because Kristen's immediate response to a wound is clean that thing out, right? And she'd get the alcohol, the hydrogen peroxide or whatever, and she would come at you like a banshee. You'd be wailing at her. She'd be like, sit still, you're making a bad example to your kids. I'm like, right? Because she wants to clean that thing. That was her response. And so the first question is, does time heal all wounds? And of course, we've been talking mainly about wounds from our past as far as family goes and things like that. Does time heal those just on their own? If you leave it alone long enough, do they go away? No. They make you think about it less, right? Because you just can't devote all the time thinking to it, but they're still there, and you always know when somebody pokes it, right? You got that bruise, and you forget that bruise is there until somebody just pushes on it. Again, not to pick on Kristen. No. She does like to if she sees me have a bruise, she'll see if it's tender. She just wants to check. She's just seeing that thing, And she's gonna look for one of those, or she'll make one after. And then, so why doesn't time heal all wounds? We hear that, right? I mean, that's a truism. I think we tell it to teenagers who fall in love because you're like, dude, you're going to get your heart broken like 36 other times before you find the one. So, get used to it, right?
It's because there's some things that we never get over.
There's some things that we never get over. So what happens if it's something that you aren't over and time passes?
You might think about it less, but if you get reminded of it, you're back feeling those bad feelings again.
Push down.
It's kind of like your sense of smell. Because if you smell something very distinct in a specific moment, and then you don't smell that thing again for a long time, then all of a sudden you smell it and it reminds you, emotionally it puts you right back in that place, doesn't it? Or you ever have a song that you just really listen to at this one point in your life, and that is the song every time you're in the car, that's the song, here we go, and then all of a sudden that song plays and it takes you right back to that place.
Beautiful memories.
Beautiful memories. But sometimes painful stuff gets stuck there too. Right? Sometimes if you were breaking up with your girl at 16 or whatever, I don't even know what you're doing, then you're breaking up with her. Still going to the same school, still riding the same bikes, right? Our bodies are designed to heal naturally over time, right? If I brush up against something and it gives me a cut right there, let's not say I'm 44, let's say I'm 16. Right? And I scrape up against something and I get a nice little cut there. If I just leave that cut alone, most likely what's going to happen? it's going to heal. Now, if the cut isn't healing, sometimes they don't, right?
Get the infection.
It gets infection. And infection works against your body's natural ability to heal, right? What causes that is when you get dirt or something's in there. What if that nail was rusty, right? Now you gotta get a tetanus shot. I always heard of lockjaw. I thought, that sounds horrible, doesn't it? Has anyone ever had lockjaw? I don't know. Yeah, I know. I would just preach in sign language. I would just learn. Yeah. You know how fast I would have to sign. So when we get infections, they work against our body's natural ability to heal. Another thing is if you break a bone, right? If the bone actually gets broken, then you have to do something or that bone isn't going to grow back right, right? Like if you see an animal or something that's been hit by a car, a stray animal, and it healed, the bone healed, but the animal never walks right again because that bone wasn't set, right? There are things that even though the body is naturally designed to heal itself over time, there are things that block our ability to do that. In fact, when people say things like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, have never been in a horrific car crash, right? Because some things just cripple you forever, right? I have a scar across my nose right here. I took a steering wheel to the bridge of my nose. My nostrils were pointed out instead of down, broke both the orbitals in my eyes, cracked my skull. And you know what? Whenever the weather changes, I remember that. Because they had to take my sinus membranes out from the back of my head and re-sew them into place because they were completely depressed, right? So what doesn't kill you doesn't always make you stronger, right? Because there has to be a healing, and for healing to happen, you have to have the right sort of environment or the right sort of things to happen for healing to come. That's why a lot of times something gets stuck in a wound, but the problem is it's infected, right? So let's say somebody gives you a critical word. Somebody gives you that dig. Somebody, you walk up behind and they're saying something about you and don't realize you're there, and you walk away before they turn around, but you already know in your heart and you feel that, right? And now it just has to sit there and there's nothing you can do about it, and it can get infected. And every time you see that person, you think, yeah, but they were the ones that were talking about me. They were the ones that were doing this, right? And that thing just kind of sits there and infected. And time doesn't really fix that, does it? So someone spiritualized that for me. What infects our spiritual wounds? When we get wounded spiritually. Now, we'll say emotionally, because you know, emotionally and spiritually are two different things. Right? Because your emotions can be all over the place, and your spirit can be kind of your anchor. Especially if you have a strong line with God. There are times where I went in there and prayed this afternoon. I'm like, Lord, I just feel carnal. I just feel fleshly. I don't feel like I'm focused in on your spirit, on what you want to say tonight. I just don't feel like I'm there, God. My emotions are all over the place. And because I could connect with him, that's what I love about being the pastor. I can go to the sanctuary whenever I want, right? Just like, you know, no admission, no nothing. I just walk in there and pray, you know? But my spirit brought my emotions back into line, right? By beginning in the presence of the Lord. But emotions can get kind of all over the place, can't they? Rain can change your emotions, right?
Really?
Yeah. Having 6 days of sunshine a year can change your emotions. So when you get something stuck in your emotions, when you get your emotions because even though you can't see them, they're very much like what happens to your physical body, right? Because for instance, if you have a wound emotionally and somebody touches that, you're going to react, right? And people react a couple different ways. Some of you, if you have a bruise there and I touch it, you'd pull away. Some of you, if you had a bruise there and I touch it, you'd swing back, right? I mean, people they lash out or they pull away. Yeah, well, with emotions, we do the same thing. If someone has hurt us, right? And then someone touches us in that place where we're hurt, we either lash out or we pull away. So, what does a supernatural emotional healing look like? This is what I say on Sunday. The world is not going to be convinced of a supernatural God by a natural church, right? If our pitch is, and this is what I believe with all my heart, that I serve a supernatural God who manifests in the present world, in this present darkness, that changes circumstances, that heals bodies, that raises dead, that brings life back into dead things spiritually, and all these things. And I believe in a God who can heal depression, right? I believe in a God who can heal anxiety. I believe in a God who can heal anger. But the question first you always have to ask is, do you want to be healed? Right? Jesus, do you want to be healed? I'm blind, Jesus is Of course I want to be healed. Do you want to be healed? Right? So what does supernatural emotional healing look like? Does anyone have an example of one in their lives? You look like you're, yes, go.
I think if you're supernaturally healed emotionally, you're gonna have joy and expectations with the Lord. You're gonna be happy. You're gonna be free.
Right. It doesn't mean you're never going to feel bad again, but it does mean that in the place where you felt bad before, there is an unexplainable supernatural joy or peace, or there's something there. Go ahead, Mona.
To me, you have to make a conscious decision that you want to be healed and give it to the Lord. Once you release it to the Lord, then He's free to heal you.
Because time's not going to do it.
No.
Just because you're a Christian, if you get emotionally hurt, just letting time pass isn't automatically going to heal that emotional hurt. Just like it wouldn't heal your natural body, just time may, if your body is healthy and everything is right, you can take a few scratches and some abrasions and things like that, and they'll just heal up and you'll be fine. I think when I was growing up, I never didn't have, there was no time where there wasn't some sort of mark on my body. I was a rough kid running into things, not on purpose all the time, right? I remember playing football and going for the football and diving into a bush, and I came out, there was a stick sticking out of my leg, and I just kept playing because that's what we did back then. There was no, timeout, right? Yeah, sure, there was a little blood. You're fine. So when your body is 100% working like it should be, you can kind of get through some things. You can kind of walk through some thorns and some thistles, and you get scratched up, but you keep going, and your body repairs itself. But sometimes the wound is a little deeper than that, right? Sometimes the bone gets broken. Sometimes you get an infection set in, right? And then all of a sudden, just being a Christian, letting time pass, doesn't heal the wound. It doesn't make it better. So what makes it better? Someone else, because you guys have talked, now somebody else. Tonight we're going to go one answer per person until I get everybody in the room, okay? So you quiet ones are going to have to talk up.
You might be a long time getting an answer.
That's okay, because sometimes I have trouble waiting for the answer, and this will be a test for both of us. So somebody tell me, what does it look like then?
I think it looks like being able to want something good for the person that hurt you. Like being able to let go of wanting vengeance for them and wanting their salvation, and then, no longer wanting to see them punished for what they did, but being able to let it go, knowing that it's ultimately in God's hands, even if they're not sorry.
Bring me an erase marker. Bear off that thing. Actually, I wanted to write this question. I have this question written down in there, and that's exactly that. Do you want the best? Right? Like, do you want God's best in a situation? Do you want God's best for you? Do you want God's best for them? Because I think we get very comfortable with, okay, a guy goes to a doctor and he says, "Doctor, it hurts when I touch this." The doctor says, "Don't touch it." Right? Sometimes we do that. Sometimes we do that where it hurts when I do this, so just avoid doing that. Avoid being in that situation. Don't let people get close to me where they can hurt me, or take myself away from things like that. Some people won't even take ministry opportunities because they've been in a ministry opportunity before and had somebody come down on them. They're like, "Well, fine, I'm not going to teach that class. If they're going to criticize the way I teach it, they're going to come at me. You know what? Fine, you guys can do it yourself." Right? So the question is, do you want the best? Let's see if I can tell this story. Ever sharpened an axe head? A guy had an old rusty axe head, and I'm not even sure if I can tell the story. I heard an old preacher say this so many years ago, and I don't remember the whole story, but I always remember the lesson of it. And the lesson of it was he had an old rusty axe head. It was his grandfather's axe, and he really wanted to use this thing again, so he took it to a smith, and the smith said, "I can sharpen it, but it's going to take a while because the thing is pretty rusty." And so he starts to sharpen it, and he's just taking forever, and it's not getting all the way to that base coat. When you got metal that's got rust on it, it's got little pop marks and things like that, you really got to grind it down to get back to that base coat. And the guy got so impatient, he goes, "You know what? I'm just okay with it being speckled."
Give that to Jesse and you better sharpen
Jesse would sharpen it for you. Yeah. Right, and I remember him saying he stopped it, and you know what, it's okay with it just being stuck. It's okay with it not being all the way. I think sometimes we're okay with being a little wounded because we're more worried about what it would feel like if God were to heal that. Right? Like Kristen was saying, that we have to want it to be healed. And you would think if Jesus said, do you want this to be healed? Like, oh yeah, heal that, right? And then if he's like, okay, this is gonna hurt for a second. Whoa, you didn't say it would hurt or it would cost me anything, right? I just want you to just do this and it's gone, right? Wave a wand, whatever. Someone else, has anybody, give you an example. When I came to Christianity, I had a whole lot of baggage. I came out of some situations. I was an angry kid. I ran away from home several times. I got every form of punishment at the school that I was going to. I mean, I got in all the trouble I could conceivably get, and they even made up punishments for me at the school, right? Because I was going to a private school, and I was rebelling against everything in that school, right? That was just me trying to get there. And when I came to Christ, there were so many things that I didn't realize I was struggling with. And one of them was that feeling of rejection, that feeling of anger. And it was one of those things where I had to, even though he had saved me and changed my life, I had to specifically ask him to take those things. Did anybody else do that? Can anybody tell me about being healed emotionally from something? If you've already answered on this one, you can answer again. I don't want to catch you guys off because you're right, it could be forever. But somebody go ahead, Jesse.
It's not probably what you're talking about, but I learned when I was in the hospital that I could feel the prayer from the people, from the Lord helping me, because that was rough.
Yeah.
It was a rough deal, and you can't do nothing. You gotta deal with the pain, whatever comes to you, you there. And nobody really listens to you. It's rough.
But that actually does have to do with what we're talking about.
It is.
Because there was a man who was a paralytic, right? Means he was paralyzed, right? Couldn't move, couldn't do anything. He could just sit there. He couldn't get to Jesus, right? And Jesus is healing everybody. Jesus is in there just having a healing service. Everybody coming to Jesus is getting healed. But he can't get there, so what did he have?
Friends.
He had 4 crazy friends. I heard a great sermon called 4 Crazy Friends. Everybody needs 4 crazy friends. Kind of friends that if you need to get to Jesus, they're going to tear the roof off the place and lower you in on a pallet. Here you go, Jesus. He's right here, right? Those kind of friends that when you say, no, I don't feel like going anywhere, they just come over to the house anyway and yank you out. No, come on, we're going out. We're going to, you got to get out of this place. We got to get you to a better place. Oh, I want to go to church. Get in church today, right? And they're dragging you in the car and just, you fuss the whole way, but you love them for it, right? You got to have those kind of friends that'll do that kind of stuff for you.
I had them, they were there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they were crazy, but they were there.
So the question is, when it comes to emotional healing, do you want the best? Do you want to be healed of that thing? This thing right here, how can you change your hurt? How can changing your hurt change who you are? Who's your hurt? Mona, I know who your hurt is. You know why? Because you were all in the same car tonight. Right? The Mona, Mary, Jerry, Jesse, Gloria herd, right? You were rolling in the car. I think you guys had some loud music playing. Yeah.
I was wondering what that word.
Well, I was listening to a guy named, he was talking about this. He was talking about your herd, right? And he said, what happens in a herd is this. When you have a group of people that hang out together, in nature, when you have animals that hang out together, whenever an animal does something that's dangerous to the rest of the animals, they immediately correct the animal through their behavior. In fact, there was a famous experiment where there were monkeys in the cage, and as part of the cage, they put a group of bananas. But every time a monkey went to grab one of those bananas, all the monkeys were sprayed with cold water. Right? So eventually, every time a monkey would try to go up to where the bananas were, the other monkeys would jump on him and no, you can't do it. But what they did was, one at a time, they replaced all the monkeys in the cage until none of the original monkeys were in there. None of the monkeys that were in there had ever been sprayed with cold water, but if any of them went for those bananas, the rest of the monkeys would jump on them. Right? Because as a group, they decided this was our rule, and so because this is our rule, this is what we're going to do. Now, you have people you hang around. Some of them you were born with, some of them you picked up, but you have people that are part of your herd, they're part of your group, and whether you realize it or not, whenever you do something that's not acceptable to that group, then somehow in that group they're going to use behavior, they're going to be what's called corrective behavior. So if you were to say, listen to music that they didn't like, they'd be like, we don't like that music. You know, that's not really our kind, right? Music's an easy one, because I had a friend that listened to country music, but he was my ride to work, so guess what? I like Reba McEntire. Because every day for a year, you know, driving to and from work, always heard that, right? He was driving, so I didn't get the choice.
You always heard it.
Yeah, heard it. But the thing is sometimes we pick up a herd of people around us that we don't really choose. In fact, somebody said that when you're a kid, all your friends are determined by proximity. Right? Like when I was a kid, all my friends lived on Clear Ridge Place or Spyglass Court. Those were the two roads, the cul-de-sacs that I was close by. Everybody I knew existed inside those cul-de-sacs. I had one friend that you had to go out the cul-de-sac and down the street to talk to, and he just seemed like forever away, right? But your friends were determined by proximity. Sometimes when we're dropped in a church, right? If you come into the church just out of the blue and you're dropped in the church, you pick up in the church the herd of people in the church that you're going to be around, the ones that you're going to be around. We as a church have a personality, right? In fact, let's get in a little bit of trouble here. When I preach, I'm on fire. Bring it down fire, right? Just preaching. Glory to God. If people aren't used to responding to it, they're going to feel awkward being the only one, aren't they? Right? I'm just going to... Preaching at a black church is the best thing ever. Right? And I'm just going to... It just is. Because you preach at a black church, and they're the most encouraging people talking to you that whole service long, right? Like, I remember just preaching, and they say something like, you need to say that again. I'm like, I need to say that again. You're right. That was good. And they're like, preach, preacher. I'll preach right now. I'll tell you what. I'm about to preach. Just the best thing, right? But what if you were the only person doing that in church? You're the only person saying amen. You're the only person clapping when the songs are going. You're the only person who wants to raise their hands. You're the only one that wants to praise the Lord. Then all of a sudden the group is looking at you like, what? You crazy person over there waving your arms like I can see you. Right? Who cares?
I think I was about 12 years old, and like I said, my friends were the kids on the street, and there was two brothers and another kid down the street that were friends. And what happened was, one of them had stole something from the store, and they either thought that I told their mom, or that I told my mom, and my mom told their mom.
Did you tell their mom, Russell?
No, I didn't. That part didn't happen. But they thought, you know, Russell was probably the one that ratted on us, so they were ready to beat the crap out of me.
I could go all night on how, especially in the teenage years and in social groups constructed in high school, one of the key things about high school social groups is that there's no actual consequences for bad actions on behalf of the kids. So they find ways to establish their own rules and hierarchy and then punish those who do not fit that criteria. And they just come up with the weirdest things, right? Like when I was a kid, man, what were some of the weird things we had in high school? You could have an earring in your left ear, but not your right one. Right? You had your shoes tied a certain way, it meant one thing. If you wore this color shoestrings, it meant one thing. If you wore this color, they still do that, but they make up, you know what I'm saying? The rules will change, and the group makes up their own rules, and then enforces that with the social pressure. Now, in church, if we're seeking the approval of men, that's what church becomes. If I'm seeking the approval of the person beside me, if I'm looking to see who else is raising their hands, who else is shouting, who else is speaking in tongues, who else is giving a word, right? If that's what I'm looking for, then the behavior that we get is a man-pleasing, dead church. That's what you get. That in church, our entire focus should be on giving glory to God. Right?
Here's one bizarre thing that happened that when I was going to Valparaiso University in the 70s. They decided to have a day where if you were wearing blue jeans, you were gay. So everybody had to search for a pair of pants that weren't boots. That was hard.
Which leads us to our next question. When we're talking about existing in a group, we're talking about, because here's the thing. Everybody you meet has some sort of expectation on you. Sharon, I expected you to be happy tonight. I just did it, you know? Colleen, I always expect Colleen to be focused. Colleen gets a goal, she gets a vision, she's got a place, right? I expect Mona to be very, what's the word for Mona? Give me a good word for Mona.
Oh, come on.
I don't know how to phrase this word, but there's a certain thing about you that, a service.
So, yeah.
It's kind of like that, right? That kind of like, if you guys ever notice on stage, that Angie always looks to see what I'm doing, because like if I go to set my guitar down, she'll take the guitar from me or whatever, that she's looking to help or she's looking to do something. Mona has that, okay, people are going to be here, let's make this place ready, right? There's a sense of, let's make ready for, right? There's that sense of expectation, right? That we have expectations. Everybody has an expectation. Some of it is based on how they've seen you in the past, and some of it is based on how they feel. Like somebody was telling me today about, they had somebody that they wanted me to talk to, that was going to be strong in questioning and things like that. And people come to church and have expectations of the people on church that we have no idea when they walk in the door what those are. Right? We have no idea that they walk into church, I expect these people to be judgmental. I expect them to be bigots. I expect them to be racists. I expect them to be this. I expect them to be that. Right? Because they're... Sadly, the biggest hurt in our culture right now is on the internet, right? The biggest place where people that's what Facebook is all about, establish my friends and my herd. And that's why a lot of times in Facebook, what ends up happening is you end up defriending all the people that disagree with you and friending people that agree with you. And then it looks like the whole world agrees with you because they're all your friends, right? And there's some people on Facebook that annoy the mess out of me, but I leave them there because I kind of want them to. Right? To remind me that there are people out there that, given a choice between loving them and smacking them, I have to think. Right? I have to at least take a second. I just have to hug them until I didn't have that urge anymore.
Just look how, unfortunately, many high school kids end up getting bullied on Facebook and go to the extreme of committing suicide.
Do you know what bullying is? It's control behavior.
Mhm.
Right? Bullying is us in a group saying, if you don't do what we as a group want you to do, then we're going to exert pressure on you. And that's what bullying is. Now, let's take this back to the church. Everyday choices that affect our eternal destiny. I don't think we realize this, but every person that you give input into your life has the ability then to affect your eternal destiny. What if I say to myself, you know what, I like Sharon. Sharon's a good person. You know what, when Sharon says something, I'm just going to believe what Sharon says. But then one day Sharon, she was up late last night, right? And she was up late and she had to watch one of the grandbabies. That thing was crying and crying, and she was just frustrated. When she got up this morning, she was out of her favorite coffee drink, right? There was no coffee in the house, so she was going to have orange juice. And you know what, Elvis drank that. In fact, he was drinking it at the table. So she's just had a bad day, and she walks across my path, and she doesn't mean to, but she just says something mean about me, right? Now, I've given her the ability to wound me, I've given her, right, all these different things where, because I let Sharon in my life, I have to understand that if I'm not ultimately seeking God's approval and not Sharon's, right? Because we all have bad days. We all, right, come in a little grumpy sometimes. Even preachers, did you know that? Sometimes somebody calls me, I'm just like, Lord, okay. Lord, you know, like I had those prayers of, Lord, I am not ready to help this person. God, you got to put this in me, right? Everyday choices that may affect your eternal destiny. One is your family, your natural mom, dad, brother, sister. How much say do they have in your life? Some of us have some struggles there. I'm just kidding with somebody. My mom is a great encourager. My mom is you're the best son in the world. You preach the best out of anybody. You're just the best, right? But there was a time when I was 17 years old that I left the house because I had to be out of the house at 17. There was a time when there was enough conflict, there was enough toxicity in the relationship that between me and my mom in particular, we're a lot alike, she and I, right? And because of that, there just came a point where every conversation we had was an argument. Every conversation ended with, I hate you. Every conversation ended with me getting mad, right? And I had to go. I really did. At 17, I really did. And I joined the Navy. And the funny thing is for 6 years in the Navy, my mom left my room exactly like I left the house. She did not change a thing. When Kristen and I got married, I had 6 months to go left in the Navy, and I brought her home when we got married, and I brought her home to my room. That was exactly what it looked like. So the weekend we stayed with my parents before we went back out to Virginia, it was in my old room. Well, I say that, my brother switched the big room for his room, but all the stuff was the same. He did that like 3 months before I left for the Navy, once he knew I was going. He's like, well, you don't need your room, right? There came a time that with my mom, as much as I loved my mom, I had to limit the connection with her. I had to limit how much we talked. I had to grow up. I think she grew up too, right? I think we both did. When we came back together after that as different people, we were able to establish a relationship in a different way where we weren't always fighting, where we weren't always wounding each other. My sister and I went through the same thing. She went down a path where I really didn't care for her theology, and because theology was so important to me, I had the need to just make fun of her church whenever she was around. I know, you can't imagine that, right? 23, 22-year-old me was a different person. I guess 21, 22, somewhere under 20 maybe, right? I felt it was more, I was so much smarter than her and the people at her church. I had to let her know that, right? And so there was a time where our relationship became so toxic that we had to get away, we had to get healed, so that when we came back as brother and sister, we could actually have a relationship. Now that's hard because sometimes people think, well, it's family, right? You can't separate yourself from family, right? Sometimes you have to. Because every day you're making a choice to let them have a place in your life that's going to affect your eternal destiny, because they are telling you things that are contrary to the Word of God, telling you things that are not going to get you any closer to that healing, telling you things that are poking at the wound that you still have, and you got to get to the place where you can get healed first and then come back into that relationship as a whole person, instead of somebody who's fighting for the acceptance of someone other than God, who cannot give you what God can give you, cannot heal you.
Like, what's gonna affect the child dramatically is like the son that no matter what he does can never get his father's approval.
Yeah, you will fight that for a long, long time, right? Someone will come in. Your friends, right? Sometimes you choose friends, and they're great when you choose them, but you can outgrow some of your friends. Do you know that? I had some friends before I was saved that I couldn't hang out with as much after I was saved. Now, some of them actually, you know what? We ended up having a good relationship, and they understood who I was now, and I was able to actually still speak into their lives and have a relationship with. Some of them, though, it was just they want to stay here at this place, and I need to get to this place. You know, they say, did you know this? That if you took your 5 friends, your 5 closest friends, and you took their income level, how much they're making, and you added it together and divided it by 5, that's probably your income level, statistically speaking. That you make as much money as your 5 closest friends. It's just one of those things, right? Because if you hang out with people that live a certain life, that do certain things, you tend to have the same sort of goals and be in the same sort of place as those people. What does that mean? It means you've got to get around people, right? Instead of choosing your friends, I always say, you've always got to have somebody who's where you want to be and somebody who's where you were, right? In your life, you got to have somebody who's where you want to be and somebody who's where you were, right? So you got somebody who's pouring into you, and you got somebody you're pouring into, right? And you're going to try and rise to that level. And sometimes I've outgrown my spiritual dads. Still love them, still listen to everything they say I have to, because I feel like God would let them smack me in the back of the head. You know, that He would have no problem with that, right? But sometimes I know that I've got to find another person in my life who can speak into me at the next level, at the next place I want to go, to do the next thing, right? And so sometimes you got to look at that everyday choice that, because sometimes, I don't want to say it, sometimes you have friends that think you got nothing else to do, right? But listen to them complain about somebody else. right? Like your whole day is just built around, you know who I need to complain about? I need about 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours of your time so I can tell you everybody that's wronged me in the past 24 hours. You know, and sometimes it's okay to say, you know what? I need to limit this communication. I need to limit this. I still want to pour in your life. I still want to be your friend. I still want to be around you. But I got to get around some people that are pouring some good stuff into me. I got to get around some people that pour some word into me. I got to be around some people that have some anointing on their lives. I got to be around some people that can do something other than just bring me down to their level. I need someone that's bringing me up to theirs. Right? We're right on time. All right. This is only the second lesson. I've got a third one after this. Someone else give me examples. So we've got family and friends. Give me another example of something you choose to do every day, but by choosing to do it every day and devoting yourself to that thing, because we're talking about glory, right? You guys remember the illustration about the pen? Right? That if you feel this pen and you feel this marker, they have something very different about the two of them, and that is this weighs more. And we put weight in things, right? Things, when we go to the Old Testament, we're talking about glory. Glory means kabod, it means weight, right? The weight of glory. When you choose to give something more weight, if I choose to give your words weight, then I make your words more important, right, than other people's words. I am vastly more interested in what Kristen has to say about me than any of you are. And I love you guys. But if you all say one thing and Kristen says something else, I mean, it would take a unanimous vote to override Kristen in my life, because I'm going home with none of y'all, right? I don't have to. None of you guys are going to be handling my food, right, the next day, or you know, setting up my life in such a way. So I understand Kristen's words have more weight with me. You choose what to give weight to. That's why I say that when you choose to give weight to something that's not of God. In fact, I was talking to a preacher the other day, and he gave me a great illustration. He said there's a difference between iron and gold, right? Iron has the weight, but it doesn't have the shine, right? Gold has the weight and it has the shine. If you have something with the shine but not the weight, then you have tin or brass, right? Only gold has the weight and it has the shine together. But we assign weight to things. We say this is important. So there are certain things you do every day, and because you make those things important to you, they are changing your destiny. So good. What you watch on TV. You sit down and for half an hour for a show or an hour, you say, you know what, I'm going to listen both to what you say and to whatever advertisers are also involved in this. Right? And they're not always saying good things. Right? Watching the news, that's the worst. The news, the world is falling apart. So there's nothing you can do. We're all going to die. Right? It's not cheerful stuff. And you can't, I limit how much, right? I got up this morning and watched the news because I was like, you know what, I haven't watched it in a while. I should probably watch it. Apparently somebody got fired and they didn't like that that guy got fired. And some people were like, he deserved to be fired. Some people were really mad that he got fired. I don't know the guy. Right? Everybody is convinced that it's either no big deal or the end of the world. Right? There's no in between anymore.
One of the things about, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 months ago I had to back away from was Facebook, because it was consuming my time.
And you don't mean for it to. You're just, let me see what everybody's doing an hour later, right?
Yeah.
And you're scrolling. You're like going through everybody's pictures from 20 years ago. What were they eating, you know, in 1996, right? What kind of, I don't know, Facebook only goes back 8 years or whatever, right? I don't know how long Facebook's been a thing. I think the oldest memory I've seen on it was 7 years. I'm glad it wasn't embarrassing. So yeah, Facebook. Every day you choose to look at Facebook, and again, people who have all different sorts of opinions, and people I don't even talk to anymore, all of a sudden have a say-so in my life. There's a guy on there, and he was my friend in high school, and he was my crazy friend. When I got in a fight, that guy was going to back me up, right? I knew if something went down, he was the guy that was going to jump in with me. You know what I'm saying? And really, we haven't talked in at least 20 years. And yet every now and then he'll post the weirdest thing and it goes right into my head, right? Don't even know him anymore. No other influence in my life. Yet he can say, I'm going to share this link, and all of a sudden some guy hundreds of miles away from him that hasn't seen in 20 years hears his opinion and gives it space and gives it room. And the thing about the internet is we don't even differentiate sometimes between what should give, what should be in our head and what shouldn't be. We just kind of let it all in there, don't we? And every day we choose whether or not to do that and how to handle it, and that affects our eternal destiny. It affects whether or not you're going to be what God wants you to be. I don't look at Facebook on Sunday morning when I come into the office. I get in at 5, and I say that. Last week I checked my Facebook right when I came in. I said, Lord, I just want to check the notification real quick. I felt so guilty about that. Because I'm not supposed to. Because there's some people make me lose my anointing. There's some people, if I see what they say on there, I'm in no condition to preach now. Right? I go get on my face for 15, 20 minutes just to get back to where I was when I walked in, because they just said something and just like, no, don't get, that's not where my emotions are. That's not who deserves this today. God deserves it. It's His day. He's got to have everything. I've got to shut that out. Right? That's why I don't watch U of L play on Saturdays, which is sad because that's when U of L usually plays football, is on Saturdays. But if I don't think they're going to win the game, I won't watch them. I mean, I got to think they're going to blow the guys out by 100 points, because the last thing I want is a close game that makes me mad that they lost on a Saturday, and it could possibly affect me preaching the next. Because it's so important to me that when I stand behind that pulpit, I'm speaking His word. So I systematically, on Saturday, start shutting out things that could affect me before I get in there. Now, you guys all have some level of this in your life, because you have a level of anointing, you have a level of calling, you have something that you're called to do, that you're supposed to be at, where you're supposed to be, and you're making decisions every day that are taking you further or closer to that. But we don't even think about it. We just do it. We just click on the link, right? We just flip on the TV. What else?
I think music.
Music's on my list. Because good music can turn the tide, can't it? I could be a sorry person and a good song come on there and just, a little tear come out. I hear you, Lord. I hear you, right? Debbie comes in a lot of time and I'm listening to rap music and just going. I just like the energy of it. Sometimes when I'm studying, I got Lecrae on, man. He says I'm not talking about that philosophic rap ad hominem, and I'm talking about the God you heard about from Mom and them, right? And I'm like, that is brilliant. Who writes that? Right? He says I'm pretty straightforward when I'm speaking about my Lord. I love that, right? And so that can't, I don't know, I promise you, a hymn will come on right after that. I mean, my rotation will literally go from Stryper to Lecrae to Dallas Holmes to, I'm sure I've got some Gaithers on there somewhere, right? Gaithers always show up. And when we did that song, Jesus, there's just something about that name. I feel like Gloria Gaither wrote that song to mess with us who don't know how to play well. Because Dee was covering that, because Elaine's like, can we play this? And I'm like, there's some weird chords in here, Elaine. I think she was just messing with us, right? But there's still something about that song that when you hear it, right? It can turn the tide. It can take you out of a place. Well, that also means that if you let certain songs in, they can take you to a different place too, right? There's some songs that aren't bad, but they're just not good for you. Right? Something else.
Caleb has a lot of the songs on that y'all are teaching us here.
Yes.
That goes on my radio first thing. I don't never change stations.
We do 5 songs, and we don't always do this now, but I always told Elaine in the beginning, if we're doing 5 songs, that one needs to be a hymn, one needs to be a traditional song, and then 3 of them are songs that are on the current top 100 praise songs being sung all over the nation. Because that way, if somebody came into our church, if they were traditional, or if they were a hymn person, or they were, the contemporary person, that we would have a little bit of that if we can blend it in and make it all work. And I think we can. I think we do. What else, Kitten? What else do you do every day that affects your eternal
Read
destiny?
your Bible or pray.
Whether you decide to read your Bible or pray, it is easy to decide not to pray. It is easy not to read your Bible. I mean, it doesn't jump in my hands, right? I'm not just walking by and, whoa, hey, song, okay, great is your mercy, O Lord, right? It doesn't do that to me. I have to go find this thing. And you know what's funny is I've got like 12 Bibles, but if I don't know where this one is, this is the one I got to find, right? This is the one I left it in the car the other day, and I'm tearing the house apart, tearing out like, where's my Bible at, right? I've got all these other Bibles. I can't study out of those. This is my Bible, right? But it's easy to decide not to. And every time you decide not to, even though it's a little minuscule, just takes you a second to make that decision, you're making a decision that feeds into whether or not you're going to get to your eternal destiny, where you're going to be what you're meant to be, whether you're going to do what you're meant to do, right?
not even making the decision. Sometimes you're so busy that you don't, you get to the end of the day, you haven't done it.
But I think especially when something like that, you almost have to find a way, you know what I'm saying? Because God is reaching out. God is always pulling us towards Him. Give me another one, we're running out of time.
I was thinking one other thing. I normally don't watch them, but I did catch a thing of Holstein talking about like how somebody else can affect you, and he was using the term "steal your glory." Like you go into a store and the store clerk gets you upset for some reason, and so since you react to that, they steal your glory.
Some guy cuts you off in traffic,
Yeah.
right? And you make that decision right then or right now. I'm gonna pull up so close I can't see his license plate. He's got to turn down. I'm gonna turn down my radio for him to talk, right? That's how close, right? Yeah. I'll tell you this. I don't hate Joel Osteen. I know a lot of people for some reason really mad at him. He is what he is, and I'm okay with him. You know, so I'm just gonna say that I've got a lot more things in my life to do other than tear down another preacher or another ministry.
Agreed.
And they're probably not doing it like I would do it, and they're not saying what I would say, and they're not preaching like I would preach, but you know what? It says right in the Bible that Jesus said that if the kingdom of God is being preached, the kingdom of God is being preached, right? And there are people, and you know, I'm like, hey, I'm the meat, he's just milk. Well, you know what? At least they're getting milk, right? Yeah. Did you know sleep is a decision that affects your eternal destiny? Can you imagine that? Sleep is when it is 9:30 at night or 10:30 or 11:30, or all of a sudden the late show's on, and you're sitting there deciding, well, what do I got to do tomorrow, or does it really matter if I stay up a little bit later and do this thing? That you're actually setting the table for what you're going to be able to accomplish the next day.
I'm in trouble.
Yeah, a lot of us are in trouble because things we don't think about, the food we eat, right? I just want the sweetest thing. That's what I like, right? I mean, we could have a sandwich for dinner, but we have ice cream in the fridge. Why do we have a sandwich, right? Ice cream sandwiches. Let's combine the two. But you make that little decision each time, right? How many of you know I didn't get this? This isn't one day. This isn't. This is some effort. This was many decisions that came together on that. Anything else? Anything else that you do it every day, and yet it literally affects whether or not you're going to get to where God wants you to be. You trio got one back there? I'm going to pick on you kids. You know.
Let's get our.
Get your story straight.
Hold on to smoke bombs, people.
Yeah. Not me. He knows better.
Okay. The conversations you choose, the jokes you tell, the people you accept or exclude from your conversations. Sometimes when you're walking by somebody, if you just reach out and put your hand on their shoulder as you walk by, that means a lot to some people because they feel noticed. They feel
The people you work with.
the people you work with.
I mean, it's coming from all different directions. And can pick and choose what you want to pick up and run with, or digest and, oh, I'm not gonna go there.
You can't choose who you work with. And as a fellow Navy guy, there were a whole lot of people that in the course of my day, I could just write the word heathen by their name and move on with my life. Right? Filthy heathen, I don't need to care. You know what I'm saying? There's just a whole lot of people that just, they don't deserve mine, right? But not only are you affecting your eternal destiny, when you look at somebody and you look past what they are and you look past what they're saying and you see the heart that's inside of them and you see the Holy Spirit pulling on them, and all of a sudden you know that there's a need in their life and you have been set there in that job to meet it, right? That not only are you affecting your own destiny, but you're affecting theirs as well.
Yeah. Like I said, one thing that everybody should remember is, and how we treat others, that Christ wants to love others through you.
Who we choose to love. Do you know you choose to love everybody you love? No one falls in love. You look at a person and you make the decision in your mind, I'm going to go after that person or not. And then the emotions can get carried away. Then the emotions can go crazy, but you decide in your heart to do that. Do you know why I'm not tempted to anybody else but Kristen? Because she's the only person I have decided to love. And when I speak to other people, there's no, I wonder if I should fall in love with them, right? That's not even a thing, because I made that decision. Every person you decide to love, but there, and obviously we have one word for love, and we don't have agape and phileo and the different types of love, right? But even in church, sometimes you've got to look at somebody who you may not have something in common with, you wouldn't normally talk to them, and you've got to say to yourself, I'm going to love that person. I'll figure out how to get into their life. I'll figure out how to speak something over them. Sometimes when people come to the altar, I have to take that moment, and I have to wait and listen for the Lord, because I want to just give them the, hey, be good kind of prayer. But I have to stop and I say, okay, God, what do you want to say to them? What is it's going on in their heart, Lord? What's going on here? And if you sit there long enough, He'll tell you. If you get your heart quiet, you get your place in it, He'll tell you what to say. The Bible says He will. So don't worry about it. When you get there, I'll give you the words. Right? All right. It's enough for one night. I've only got a page and a half left anyway. 2 pages. It's actually 2 full pages. June, would you lead us out with